What's going on, guys? I am back and we got a request today. I'm getting popular, guys, because I have a request. And that request was by DJ Sprouts over there. See him? Yeah, there he is. He asked me to review the first and second chapters of this fan fiction called Blood Spangled Mirror. I don't know what that title means, but I'm sure we'll get into it once we read. Um, so I didn't actually read this beforehand. I wanted to do it first on here, as the first reactions type of thing. So I'll review the first chapter now, and I'll review the second chapter sometime soon, because he said he wanted it done like close together. So without further ado, let's start. Chapter 1 is called A Home for All. Well, our story begins on an ordinary Thursday evening for the Louds. Everyone, except for some others doing late-night errands, have all arrived from whatever fruitless endeavors they were previously just doing. As a white-haired boy with a prominent cowlick and his naturally all-white hair, kind of already said that, by the name of Lincoln, was wearing an orange polo shirt with what he called his victory undies. I remember that episode. That was weird. Taking up as much space as he possibly could on the TV couch, as he wanted no one, to bother his little relaxation setup. And on the other side of the house, inside the open dining room, with all the lights off except for the lights coming from the ritual candles she had set up, was a jet black-haired child with unusually pale white skin who was wearing a black and white striped undershirt and a black sleeveless jacket by the name of Lucy, who was the seventh oldest at 8, is trying yet again to contact some deceased relative. She's 8? Oh man, I actually didn't know that. I thought she was like 10 or something. Okay. Lucy then donned a stereotypical fortune teller's hat, but before she began the conjuring, you could just say conjuring process, the black-souled Lucy muttered, the black-souled, I guess that would make more sense. Lucy muttered something under her breath. Okay, one more time tonight. Lucy was about to start when suddenly the house just about shook as an ear-piercing screech of the happy kind could be heard just outside. A set of footsteps approached the door with a somewhat incoherent Valley girl talk that no one inside the house cared for. Once the footsteps had reached the door, a faint knock followed by a polite request to let them inside was also heard. Lincoln then took one glance up at the door. You try and use the key that Mom gave you, Lenny? Lincoln asked with an annoyed voice. I don't know why those lines are there, but no, too big of a deal. Well, duh. How do you think we got into Vanzilla? Lenny said cheerily, not noticing Lincoln's slightly upset tone. Well, of course you have the van's keys, but I mean the house keys. Oh, silly you. House keys aren't meant to leave the house. They live with the house, not the van. Sounds like something you'd say. Lincoln then paused for a moment before realizing Lane left the house keys inside. Signed to himself, Lincoln then called out, all right, who called dibs to not help out Lynn? He was then immediately cut off by a chorus of dib declarations, except for one 13-year-old sports all-star tomboy who came bellowing down the stairs in a frantic frenzy. Don't worry, I'm coming for you, Lenny. Just stay right there. A young 13-year-old energetic jersey wearing brunette, I think he spelled brunette wrong, ponytailed sports all-star cried out as she came barreling down the stairwell, sliding on the stair railings before jumping off and landing feet first at the front door. Oh, okay, Lenny replied innocently enough. Show off, Lincoln thought to himself. If it's thoughts, I would recommend putting apostrophes here instead of the print, instead of these, just the one, just to make it look different. Lincoln thought to himself, bitterly returning to his comic book reading, trying to ignore Lynn's theatrics, though not actively expressing displeasure. As the last time Lincoln tried to do that, he was pretty sure he almost lost one of his eyes to Lynn. You serious? This is literally the 5th time, a feminine but older, fed-up voice cried out. I'm still dumbfounded as to how Lynn seems to get under Lori's skin so badly, and Lynn vice versa. I mean, yeah, Lynn is annoying to say the least, but I mean, damn, it's like anytime Lori hears Lynn or Lynn hears Lori, they're about to get down to fisticuffs. Fisticuffs is one word. It's not separated like that. If I didn't know any better, I'd say Lori actually hates Lynn, and Lori vice versa, Lucy pondered to herself with a frown forming to complement her solemn thoughts. Oh wow, guys! I'm not surprised that only I seem to care about one of my own about our own kin. Lynn snapped as she got to the door, about to let Lenny inside. That's rich come from you, Lori whispered under her breath vitriolically, who came out in her standard day outfit, which was a turquoise tank top and some khaki cargo shorts, which all meshed together with her blonde and self-styled hair, which somehow managed to stay up, as also mascara put on her face haphazardly. Well, of course we care, Lynn, Lori refuted while coming down the stairs up from her bedroom. We, or maybe I, just wish that Lenny would stop being so, well, you know. She needs to learn to be less babied all the time. Am I right? Or am I wrong, Lynn? Lori spat that last part with a bit of venom in her voice. Yeah, but that doesn't mean we have to leave a lone pup in the cold, Lynn spat back angrily. Lori didn't answer that last bit. She just glared at Lynn as she let Lenny inside, although a bit confused at that pup part. I mean, sure, Lenny's naivety was compared to that of a baby at times, but to call her a puppy was a bit too on the nose. And while on that note, a bit offended that Lynn would relate Lenny to a helpless puppy. Hello? I exist, guys, you know? The Valley Girl stated, sounding a little impatient, hearing the spat between the two girls, but still withheld her ever-enduring optimism. Lenny chuckled a little. Yeah, I know. Come on already. The place was feeling drab without your magic touch around. Lenny welcomed charismatically. Lenny then proceeded to step inside the house onto a neatly placed, poorly made welcome mat right under the doorway, greeting everyone with her standard turquoise dress and white brimmed sunglasses that she always had resting on her and her blonde hair. Even when it wasn't sunny, you don't need to put the despite there. But despite what her awareness shows, Lenny is actually the second oldest in the sibling totem pole at a perfectly rounded 16. Hey, sorry I was out so late this time of night. The prices on these cute dresses was just too good to just pass up, Lenny justified. It's all right, Lenny, just so long everyone is in one piece, I'm good. Though I might not be able to say the same about Miss Feisty Pants over here. Lynn Jr. assured Lenny while gesturing towards Lori, who was still upset for seemingly no reason to Lynn. She just assumed Lori was on her period again. Lenny then tried to go up the stairs into her room, only to stop at Lori still in the stairwell, blocking her way. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. No, Lynn, I can assure you I am perfectly fine, Lori responded, looking past Lenny's shoulders and straight at Lynn. Well, hi, Lenny, Lori spoke tiredly, sick of having to deal with Lynn's antics. If you say so, Lynn muttered under her breath while looking away from Lori's arms folded. Hey, Lori, come here. I want to see you in one of these. I got two of each outfit for a reason, you know, Lenny said with a bubbly attitude, with a smirk growing on her face. Is that Louis Vuitton? Lori was about to jump out of her skin in excitement. Like, you bet it is, girl. Now get in the mirror already. Lenny then proceeded to shove Lori to the top of the stairs and into their bedroom to do whatever people who try on expensive clothes do. Wear them? Lynn's eyes then quickly darted around, spotting Lincoln still sitting on the couch and then observing Lucy still on her ritual table, staring at Lynn as if something was about to happen. And the limo wanted to catch every second of the event, to which Lynn then gave Lucy a light smile and a hand wave, although Lucy did not respond in kind, turning away quickly, not expecting this sudden interaction, quickly looking in another direction blankly. Lynn was a bit disheartened after that, and then turned back to Lincoln. I don't get it, Link. Why does Lori hate it when I help you guys so much? Especially Lenny. I mean, if it's like a protection thing, then she should have come running to the front door before me. But no, Legata Lori, I don't know what that is, throws that idea the idea out of the window too, along with any sincerity I showed, Lynn said while rubbing her arms subconsciously along with a forlorn expression. What do you think, little bro? Aside from the obvious. What? Besides Lori being on her Lori Lincoln asked, confused and uncomfortable about Lori, what with her most likely being on her period on his mind. Yeah, the little athlete confirmed in an uncomfortable tone. Well, pausing for a moment to say the right thing. This is just a theory, but don't cut me off, Lincoln said frantically. I mean, I wasn't going to, but now you've said it, it means I'm probably not going to like what I hear, aren't I? The chocolate pie with her arms crossed. I just, I think she hates you because she's what? Spiteful, devious, a total bitch? Lincoln said with Lynn said with a cheeky smirk. I heard that, an angry voice came out from what was assumed to be Laurie's room. Oh, I bet you did. Lynn bellowed out towards the right, rough direction of Laurie's room, with an audible growl then being heard upstairs, to which Lynn took a moment to laugh about her big sister's reaction. Though Lincoln actually feigned his laugh about Laurie. So anyway, what's the deal with Laurie? I need an outsider's perspective on things like this, man. Lincoln then racked his brain for a moment before settling on the perfect answer. Lynn, I think Laurie's actually jealous of you. Jealous? Look, Lincoln, I appreciate you thinking outside the box as much as you care to venture anyways, but that can't be right. You always tell me that, but it just doesn't make any more sense the more you say it. I mean, why would Laurie be jealous of me? And for a year, seems out of the ballpark if you ask me, Lynn asked confused. Well, think about it, Lynn. Laurie's has always been the best sister parent or whatever we used to call it, and Laurie always hated it when you would beat her to the punch when it came to getting the best sister votes. I guess once we started calling it the best sister more and more, it started to get on Laurie's nerves, and now here we are. Interesting to have Lynn painted here as the good sister. Not it's not really the norm. Gotta give credit for that. Gotta give credit for the bit of originality there. Lynn Jr. sat and thought, could Laurie really be this petty? Well, they were all still a family, and she's way older than Lynn Jr. About 4 years, in fact. So this kind of thing shouldn't happen. Could it? No matter what Lynn thought, it was obvious there was some hot magma under the lava field that was their relationship. And this was not a new revelation to the young all-star. Like Lynn said, Lincoln had always told her the same thing and Lynn never listened, brushing off his advice. However, Lynn wouldn't dare ask Laurie about his idea, judging by how Laurie was even irritated by the mere presence of Lynn. The jersey-wearing 20 or more trophy-owning winner did not want to tempt the integrity of her morality by asking Laurie about anything with that much baggage. Though that didn't stop Lynn from poking fun at Laurie's irritation. Lynn, you in there? Lincoln quizzed, looking concerned for his spaced-out sister. Oh, sorry, just smelling the roses right now. It just doesn't make any sense no matter how he'd go about telling it to me. Look, you keep asking me for the perfect advice for someone who isn't involved, and I'm just going to keep giving you the same thing time and time again. Time out, time in, time out. I guess that works. I don't know. Lincoln said firmly. Well, thanks for trying anyway, girl guru. Lynn chuckled. Oh, come on, that was a one-time thing. Lincoln started getting red in the face with pure embarrassment and just laughed at that humiliating memory. I'm just messing with you, Link. See you around, buddy, Lynn Jr. said casually while ruffling Lincoln's pre-60-year-old white hair before going up the stairwell up to her own room to presumably stew in her new thoughts. Meanwhile, Lincoln went back to his comic, only for the family cat to clamber on top of his lap to rest. Lincoln, of course, welcomed the feline with open arms. Hey, buddy. Say, I know cats can't talk, but do you think you could at least help a guy out with a hint? Lincoln said, holding up the feline by his front legs, with the feline's response just being loud meows towards the kitchen. Oh, right, you need some food, don't you? Then meow again. The cat then meowed again to confirm Lincoln's suspicions. Well, all right, I'll fix up some grub soon. So run along now. Lincoln then dropped the beloved pet onto the floor who just ran to the kitchen. Well, guess the guy couldn't even get a hint. Lincoln said dejectedly before returning to his comic that he was still reading, ignoring the cat's pleas for food. Lynn then looks around to see if there's anything else might bother her again. After observing them leave, and Lincoln resumed to his pantless comic book reading, Lucy finally started with her ritual thing. Oh, spirits, by the power within me, I give thine energy as offering to grant one more good morrow, to quell my great sorrow. And as a sign of your presence, I simply ask you to take away the life of the flames before me. So please come forth, oh dearest Harriet, please. I miss you so. Lucy then started to get glassy-eyed, finishing that last sentence, quickly recovering in anticipation for Grandma's arrival. I'm assuming that's Grandma, but nothing happened. The candles kept lit, and Lucy did not receive a greeting from her Aunt Harriet. She spoke dejectedly. Well, at least it wasn't unexpected. Why am I even trying anymore? Grandma Harriet is no matter how true of the fact that Grandma Harriet was gone, like Lucy, the stubborn to the bone child, would never finish that sentence. No, she's not. The Gah! Why does it always work on those ghost shows and not now? I mean, if I knew any better, I'd say she's just plain ignoring me. Lucy then stomped around the table for a bit, reminiscing about all the times she watched those ghost shows with Grandma Harriet. Lucy loved Grandma Harriet more than anyone else in the family could have possibly hoped for. That's not to say the rest of the family didn't care for Harriet. It's just, well, Grandma Harriet was always kind of like Lucy, but leaned into the spiritual and occult side of things more, and the rest of the Laws were either too creeped out, just plain didn't care, or care to understand Miss Harriet. However, Lucy was not deterred by her family's rhetoric. In fact, Lucy was fascinated by her great aunt. You just said grandma, but okay. Lucy would always be around her at any chance she got, and it was if she was a third parent, much to her real parents' dismay, who would let Lucy visit but never really stuck around to see them together, using whatever excuse they could come up with to escape Miss Harriet. Lucy then pulled out a vacant dining chair. She began to recall the time she hung out with Harriet just to cheer herself up a bit. After yet another failed calling ritual, Lucy's head fell as if it were to spin off any moment until one memory struck out at her. Flashback to 2 years ago. The vision Lucy had conceived was a rather late memory, at least to Lucy herself. It was just Luce and Harriet hanging out like they always did, sitting on the regal old-fashioned furniture that was all themed around the early 19th century Victorian Gothic with clean white cloth that was also edged in bright yellow that was spread out wherever it could be placed, all contrasted by an archaic entertainment section, including a vintage player with a stack of respectively vintage records, which was as varied as a deluxe edition of Abbey Road, among other various Beatles albums, to Discovery, to Essential, ELO, Discovery, and Essential, both obviously by ELO. I don't know what ELO is. Whereas for the two buddies in question, we see Harriet, what many would describe as a much, much older version of Lucy, even having the black hair mysteriously retained all the way past 90. As for Lucy, she didn't get too into the dark and brooding phase just yet, as she just wore some standard black hoodie, Adidas tracksuit get-up she had lying around, staring intently at the old-fashioned flat screen that was playing one of Lucy and Heart's favorite ghost shows called One Step Beyond. That should all be capitalized. And both liners were considered unsinkable. Oh, one more thing. The author of this book called his ship the Titan. In a moment, something to think about. Next week, we begin with a silly argument of primitive flat screen, and then sat before Lucy and Harriet, suddenly cut off by a short, static sound being audible as the great and soon-to-be late Grana reached out, pointed, and pressed the power button on the remote. Ah, now we'll never know the teaser, Lucy bellyached to her literally close relative. Well, that's exactly the point, Luce. If I let you see it, you'd never keep out of me ear about it, Harriet replied as she reached over with an empty hand jostling Lucy's hair playfully. Brianna, are those stories really true? Lucy asked hopefully. Well, of course not, Luce. It's just a bunch of TV theatrics, I tell ya. The soon-to-be late Miss Harriet answered through a fit of chuckling, to which the pre-emo Luce responded by lowering her head down, facing the carpet floor, dejectedly laying out a solemn sigh escape her. Of course, Harriet felt a bit bad, being a bit harsh on the delivery, and the great Miss Harriet knew that she had to cheer up somehow, but how? And then, just in that moment of consideration, she had a plan to turn Luce's frown upside down. Ah, cheer up, love. You know, every lie has a seed of truth, eh? Grandma Harry said that last eye with an obvious wink. Lucy's eyes initially lit up with excitement as she practically snapped her neck towards her Grandma's eyes. Oh, wait, Grandma, are we gonna... Lucy was suddenly cut off by a rather coarse-skinned finger being pointed at her lips, and abrupt "Shoosh!" from the mysterious old Harriet. Yes, why, yes, we are, dear child. Harriet, by now, has long since gotten out of her chair and sat Lucy down for this little monologue she had prepared and probably rehearsed. I think it's time for you to learn how to mm, learn a few of your ancestors' old tricks that have been passed down from generation to generation, guiding their way through the cold grip of disdain from normal folk. To be honest, I wanted to teach you this stuff sooner, but well, I was kind of worried you'd be like your other siblings. Lucy gave a quizzical look toward your grandma's face at that last tid bit of what was said about being like her other siblings. Of course, Harry could read Lucy's expression like an open book, so Harriet then proceeded to take a deep breath as she began to explain. Well, what I mean is, well, they find all the stuff I do with you creepy, and so your family always likes to pretend I don't exist. All because my methods are a bit unorthodox. I mean, for goodness sake, I'm not some creepy old crone, am I? I mean, they barely talk to me as it is. And your mother and father, well, I must ask, what did they tell you about me? Lucy then started to grow a bit worried before, as she knew where this might have been going. Since Harriet's expression was starting to get into a deep scowl, she continued to rant. What could they be filling your head with? That they want to make me look like some monster? Harriet was then caught up by a warm, tight grasp around her waist area, which then investigated was found out to be Lucy. Anna, you're not a monster, and I don't care how many times you raised the dead or whatever crap my dad spews. Lucy began to get glassy-eyed and sniffly as she was trying her hardest to not bawl out crying. I love you, Grandma, and I couldn't ask for a better one. Lucy uttered with every ounce of emotion her little body could muster while still gripping her waist tightly. After that display of genuine wholesomeness, little old Harriet dropped her scowl in exchange for a feeling of appreciation and satisfaction while patting Lucy's back softly. Sorry for the yawning. Sleep, I need it, and I bet you do too. Luce, you always know when I'm starting to go off me rocker, and most importantly, how to make this old gal smile. Harry then paused to look down at Lucy, which is precisely why I'm choosing you for who I pass down the family secrets to, dear child. Harriet told Lucy as she pried her off her waist, to which Lucy decided to take one of Harriet's hands instead. The two then sauntered their way through an elaborate bead-curtained doorway into an atmospheric room filled to the brim with bookshelves of various tomes and presumably spell books. In the center of the room there was a large, round, ornate oral wood table with runic symbols circling the edge of the round table, along with various other runes marked on the surface of the table. But what stood out from everything else was a glass display case, a display case that was fogged up with a thick gray fog. But inside there was a particularly large tome, a tome that could have been presumably been but inside there was a particularly large tome, a tome that could have probably been double the length of the King James version of the Bible. Just from eyeballing the thickness, and the cover itself resembled that of a shredded crocodile skin, along with its corners being lined with what looked to be gold, and the cover had archaic runic letters that also etched in gold that looked of a bygone age. Harriet noticed Lucy starry-eyed at the glass encased book, starting to act a bit weird. Oh, I see you're eyeing that. Don't worry about that little thing. Harriet chuckled nervously. But it's shiny. Lucy replied, not paying attention to Harriet, and traced by the shining gold highlights that shot through the gray mist-filled case. Hey, why don't we talk to Pop-Pop's great-granddad? Harriet said hastily, turning with a swayed interest on the creepy tome. Pop-Pop's great-grandma? Ooh, Lucy said, googly-eyed, losing her attention towards the murky tome, much to Grandma's relief. I've noticed a lot of this, like, this guy uses a period, like, when there should probably be a comma there. It's very weird. I think you've noticed that he does this multiple times. So that's one thing he should fix if the story is to continue or if he wants to update it. You know what I mean? Anyway, I wonder what he looks like compared to the family portrait, Lucy asked innocently. After Lucy recalled what she asked about Pop-Pop's grandma, she snapped back to reality. Her tear-filled reality. I miss you, Grandma, Lucy said out loud to herself, looking towards her diary she left on the table, away from the ritual candle light longingly. Guess there's nothing better I could do. In the less savvy part of the house, we find a small 4-year-old scientist wearing a green sweater, a baggy maroon sweatpants, as well as oversized black rimmed sunglasses, or black rimmed glasses. I don't know why I said sun. Conducting some sort of elaborate experiment with high tech equipment and a baby toddler. You could just use one. You didn't have to use both. They're both basically the same thing. All right, third time's the charm. Surely I can find out CRISPR. Then surely this shouldn't be anything else but trivial, for Pete's sake, Lisa said in an exhausted voice, as if she hadn't slept for days at a time, with the layered bags under her gaunt eyes as further proof of this conclusion. Now, my loyal assistant, start the recording. Lily then gave a thumbs up sign while holding up a video camera that was also held up by a tripod on the ground. I like that. I like that idea of Lily being Lisa's assistant. That's awesome. So, love it. Lisa then gets in front of the camera, where it is facing a strange device with what looked like a dentist chair with a metallic bowl object above, glowing with a blue LED ring that ran all the way around the trim of the metallic bowl, hooked up to a crane device that connected to the side of the chair, with cabling running from the chair to a large server tower in the very far right corner of the room, just beside the window, which Lisa moved in front of the camera in such a way as to obscure the machine with some sort of reveal. There was also a large screen on the wall behind her, which was also connected to the server tower. Greetings, fellow scientists. I've heard about your recent openings for bright and fresh minds, and at that, I plan to demonstrate my scientific prowess with my newest and possibly most ambitious machine. I bring you a device that does the impossible. The thing that has baffled the greatest minds history has had to offer. And yet here I, Lisa Loud, have cracked it. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you. Lisa then steps out of the way while making a sort of bowing motion, making way for the camera to get a closer view. A mind reader. No, it's more of a mind projector. But that's beside the point. As you might be able to see if my assistant would just look to the right a bit. Lisa grumbled under her breath while signaling her camera toddler to move the viewpoint slightly to the right. Yes, right there, perfect. Lisa muttered just loud enough for the audio to be picked up. Anyway, you're probably wondering, but Lisa, how could you project the human mind's thoughts when we don't even know how it works? Well, that's the thing. We aren't really messing with the brain. We're just converting the brain waves by being read by this crane thingy. Lisa said while motioning to the machine with her hands somewhat cluelessly. Lisa just giggled a bit at Lisa struggling. Hey, you try submitting a mind-reading device without sounding like a tad bit like a conspiracy theorist. Then you can laugh at me, Lisa protested defensively. Anyway, now that may sound painful, but I can assure you that I have in fact only heard about. Lisa then proceeded to count her fingers of how many failed trials she ran, but was quite surprised when it went past her finger count completely, to which she grew visibly nervous about. Lisa laughed sheepishly, the smile to match. At least it's been tested, but none the matter. Science isn't anything if not separating the possible from the impossible. Now, since it has in fact been tested numerous times, I know exactly. Lisa paused as she noticed Lily staring back at her with her brows furrowed into a V to show her disbelief of Lisa's claims to know what will happen. At least that's what it looked like to Lisa. Okay, I might know what's going to happen. Now, granted, I was not allowed to access access to human test subjects, so I've had to get by with simple lab mice. Speaking of which, why there's one. Lisa then gestures the camera to pan over to the doorway to which we can see a black cage with a lone albino mouse. Lisa then moseys on over towards the cage and then retrieves the little white rodent, to which it said rodent rested on top of Lisa's small hand peacefully. Oh. This, as you can see, is our literal lab rat dubbed Grum. Grum was named Grum by the Lily herself, as that's what Lily called it the first time she saw Grum, and still does to this day. Anyway, he is who shall be graciously demonstrating the validity of my device. All I have to do is just sit him on this chair. Lisa then walks over to the side of her outlandish invention and then sits down Grum. straining his loose appendages with leather straps. Now, I know what you're probably wondering again. Hey, since you mentioned this experiment failed numerous times, how do you know this will go as planned? And more so, how likely is the chance that Grum makes it out unscathed? Well, I have an answer. We have taken out all our precautionary equipment in the unlikely event of yet another failure. Power outage. Right, Lily? Lisa then glanced at Lily behind the camera, who was looking at Lisa quizzically, not really knowing anything that was happening, truth be told. Lily was only paying attention because Lisa bribed her not to make noise while videotaping. Lisa preferred someone else to do it, but, well, she already tried it with everyone else. One by one, everyone got sick of suffering under Lisa's failed scientific venture, so the only one left was, well, the baby, unfortunately. Come on, Lily, this thing! Lisa then points out a black welder's mask from out of the camera's view, seemingly out of nowhere. Ooh! Lily cooed with an expression of both discovery and desire to get her cookie prize. Yeah, Lily shouted out while waving her around the black welding mask around. Yes, that! Put that on quickly. Time is most certainly not on our side, Lisa said, further irritated, wanting to get on with her experiment already. All right, now that we're all properly equipped, we can move on with the demonstration. Lisa chuckled maniacally as she shimmied her way towards a sort of control panel which was situated under the large screen mentioned before. Pressing buttons down on the panel, accompanied by charging whirring sounds, and the monitor starting up with a light blue background accompanied by a spinning loading circle in the center of the screen, similar to YouTube's buffering wheel, but much more archaic in appearance. And so now that I've activated the startup process of the machine, it is now time to lower the mind interface mechanism onto Grum. After Lisa lowered the bowl-like device on top of the white lab rat, Grum began to get a little distressed, making loud, aggravated squeaking sounds. Lisa, noticing this, put her left hand under the machine bowl to put the quaking mouse at ease. Oh, don't be shy. This process should only last about a few seconds. At that, well, we'll all see whether or not I'd have to redo this confounded test again. He said that through gritted teeth. Lisa then motioned to Lily to move the camera onto the machine and not Lisa's mouth. And so, with anticipation thick in the room, the machine continued its more loud charging noises, which were getting louder and louder. Pretty soon the chair itself started to shake. It was at the point where Lisa started to panic since it looked like it was going to be another repeat of last night and the night before that and the night before that and so on. No, no, no! Don't overload now, not when I'm so close! Lisa cried out in despair while gazing upon the machine's meltdown. A moment later, the server tower then started to smoke. Lisa saw her. Oh, where's the extinguisher? Lisa exclaimed to no one in particular, where Lily just watched a show that Lisa was putting on before, running in circles, trying desperately to find anything that stopped the machine's meltdown. Then, after the server tower started to smoke, the monitor turned bright red and in flashing bold white text that read, error, system overload imminent. It was at that point that Lisa had lost all hope of saving the machine. She had literally slaved over and ran to get Lily out of the room as fast as possible. But unfortunately, Lisa was too short to just grab Lily out of her crib and leave. She had to get some leverage to reach the crib she sat in first, but all the while Lily was just fixated on a precious little Grum, who was still stuck inside the chair of the machine, voicing her dire position via loud, squeaky shrieks. Lisa wanted to rescue dear old Grum, but Lisa had told her to stay put. Eventually, she got tired of just sitting in her crib. But just as when Lisa finally found something of suitable height and weight for her to carry towards Lisa's crib and used to climb up, Lily had just up and clambered out. Clambered. Is that a word? Yeah, so it is. So it is. Lisa almost went completely hysterical from witnessing the crib empty until she saw Lily walking towards the volatile chair, willingly walking towards certain doom for a reason that Lisa had completely forgotten about. Lily, what in the blazes are you doing? Get away from that chair, now! Lisa shouted as loud as she could over the throttling chair, the beeping of the monitor, and the constant whirring sounds that were all interweaved with each other to make a noise so loud that it actually got the 15-year-old rocker Luna's attention, who was still in her standard day-to-day punk rock outfit from all the way across the other side of the house. She was laying in bed listening to her iPod tunes at full volume. Huh? Oh, I swear one day Lisa's gonna get totally thrashed by one of her doohickeys. Maybe I'll actually convince her not to blow up the house for once. Ah, who am I kidding? I'll just make her want to do even more. With that declaration, slightly disgruntled and annoyed, Luna Hayes lazily made her way over to Lisa's room, bracing herself for whatever explosion might go up in her face. Meanwhile, back in Lisa's room, Lily was about to touch Grimes' little pink paw, to which Grum was trying to reach out to Lily. Unfortunately for Grum, however, Lisa had other plans. She wanted to keep the sister she had before her intact. And just as they were about to touch, Lisa snatched Lily out of Grum's grasp. Forget the rodent! I just want to make sure our house actually has 10 sisters. Lisa exclaimed to Lily, who was quite distraught at not being able to at least shake the hand of sweet, innocent old Grum just one last time. But alas, this was not to be. Grum! Grum! Lily whimpered out with a sad look, to which Grum returned the same sad face. Just then, Luna had opened Lisa's door about to give a whole spiel about not ruining her jam session with crazy gadgets again, but was promptly surprised by the sight of a glowing blue, violently shaking chair about to explode, and Lisa charging out the doorway while carrying Lily out, with Lily struggling to get out of Lisa's grasp. Make gangway! Lisa shouted out right before being pushed back by a powerful blue electric shock wave that blew Lisa and Luna away with the strength of a missile blast. Luckily, Lily was cushioned by Luna's stomach, but Lisa was not so lucky, landing head first next to Lori and Lenny's shared room. Ouch! Completely embedded into the wall itself for a few moments right before popping onto Luna's face. The house also suffered a complete blackout, earning a round of groans all across the house, along with the sound of some things falling over and a few angry comments to coincide with what everyone assumed was probably Lisa doing. Yep, called it, Luna said while muffled by Lisa's body. Can it? Lisa replied angrily through gritted teeth right before squirming off Luna's face and then getting up to dust herself. Well, go on, tell me how I shouldn't do it again because blah blah this and blah blah that. Lisa replied mockingly while readjusting her glasses, which were now slightly cracked at the bottom. Well, to put it frankly, I've heard it once, heard it twice, and I most certainly won't hear it an upteenth. Lisa was about to go on, but right before Luna cut her off. Hold that thought for a second. I want to see if I can pull off that clapping trick from the movies. Oh, don't be preposterous. That wave was probably so strong that it most likely put every electronic in this house completely out of commission. Lisa completely stopped in her tracks, being wrong about yet another thing today, with even Luna herself having a lot of doubt that it was going to work. But against all odds, the cheesy trick succeeded, with every light in the house that was rudely shut off by the blast all flicker back to life around the house, with some enjoyment being proclaimed around the house. You were saying, little dude? Luna replied with a smirk. I stand corrected. Lisa spoke with her mouth agape, since science really does boggle the mind, huh? Yeah, Luna answered blankly, being tugged at the bottom of her leg by a small crying toddler. Oh, it's all right, little bro. Loon's got you, Luna said sweetly before picking Lily up by the pits and inspecting what had happened to her. Luckily, no damage was visible until an awfully sickening smell caught Luna's nostrils. Grum, Lily got out before starting to cry again. Grum. All right, Lisa, you gotta translate for me here, dude. Also, do explain the smell. I mean, goddamn. I thought Mom and Dad told you not to mess with shit again. Luna said with both a confused and disgusted look at Lisa, who had suddenly looked like she grew very nervous, with the color completely draining from her face. What? Oh, no! That's been proven to be a lackluster resource at the best of times. No. Lisa nervously chuckled, rubbing the back of her head. The smell? Well, remember how Lily likes to get attached to my test subjects? Lisa laughed suspiciously. It was at that point that Luna was starting to connect the dots as to why Lily was upset, but Luna needed more verification just to be sure. Yeah, go on, Luna said with an upset frown, forming, visibly cringing at the stench emanating from Lisa's room. Well, there was just one particular rodent called, well, Grum, and as you may smell, Lisa said as she stepped back against her room door, putting out one arm, presenting Luna the aftermath of Lisa's short-sighted hubris firsthand. Then all of a sudden, Lily started to struggle and toward Luna's arms, much to her surprise, so much surprise that Lily actually managed to wriggle out Luna's grasp and fall to the carpet floor, running straight over to the charred remains of poor Grum. Luna then tried to chase after her, but there was There was little she could do, as by the time the two siblings caught wind of what just happened, Lily was right in front of the botched creation and proceeded to bawl her eyes out or next to Grum. Meanwhile, Luna decided to see for herself to the extent how badly Grum was battered. Turns out, even Luna herself was quite taken by the display, with the innocent rotor resembling more of a burnt piece of pepperoni pizza than a white mouse still smoking by the way. Oh, dude, I might actually just hurl, bro. Luna proceeded and proclaimed to Lisa, who was mysteriously missing at the moment, until she found Lisa digging around in a pile of her destroyed scientific equipment, with Lisa herself coming across a small video recorder with a broken tripod that had a cracked camera view. Eureka! It was all not for naught! Lisa yelled out triumphantly with her hands in the air. Cleared her throat sharply, standing straight up at Lisa with her arms folded firmly, to which Lisa promptly dropped the videotaping device and put out a sheepish smile. Lisa giggled nervously. Look, I don't want all this trouble to go to waste, you know. Lisa cried out in defense. Luna just shook her head and pressed the bridge between her brows together with the two fingers. Look, I know I could say a lot of things right now, but you know what? I'm not gonna. Luna said in a surprisingly calm manner, but in a way that you could clearly tell she was pissed. Well, this wouldn't have occurred if you would have just helped me, Lisa spat back. Oh, we're gonna play this game now? All right, fine. This, Luna said while putting her hands up, gesturing to Lily, wouldn't have happened if you would just listen to Mom and Dad during that family meeting. Luna spat back while scowling at Lisa, who just scowled straight back at her with just as much contempt. You really think I'm going to give up on science just because all you told me to? Lisa pointed out angrily, though not nearly as much as Luna. Yes, we do, because of shit like this. Do you not see the imprint you left on the wall? You could have killed Lily, you fucking psycho! Luna yelled out with protective rage. As soon as Luna swore like that, and very loudly, mind you, Lori and Lenny decided to come out and investigate, and what they saw was a blown-up chair that reeked of burnt toenails. Lori didn't let the smell get to her, but Lenny couldn't take it. She just left Lisa's decimated room, but not before picking up the still distraught Lily. But as for Lori, well, all right, I think I know what's going on here, Lori muttered, pinching the bridge of her nose, her brow in frustration. Everybody out, Lori said shortly. But she, Luna started. I said out, Luna ordered firmly while pointing a finger through the doorway, aiming just outside Lisa's room. So the two bickering siblings complied and went out in the hallway just outside to where Lori pointed. All the while, Lori just glared at the two leaving, following every step with her fierce gaze. After Luna and Lisa left the room, Lori quickly followed suit and put herself in front of the duo to properly address them. Lori pinched the bridge between her brows together again, allowing a deep sigh to bellow out before starting. All right, let's start with Luna. I don't care what someone did or is doing. You can't talk like that, let alone to a sibling like Lisa. And yes, you're probably gonna say something like, oh, she did another experiment like we told her not to do, mind you, Lori said while looking down, furrowing her eyes at Lisa. But that's beside the point. I don't care what someone does. You should never put them on blast like that. Whatever aggression you have between each other ends right now. So just like shake hands or something. Just make up. I don't care how you do it. Just do it. Lori said with a fed-up attitude. Lisa and Luna turned to each other, the two rubbing the back of their heads nervously as they looked to Lori with conflicting looks. Now, Lori spoke, almost shouting. Soon after, the two reluctantly shook each other's hands. I'm sorry for getting up on that, you little dude. Luna said with questionable sincerity. Yes, I'm sorry for putting Luna in harm's way like that and disobeying everyone. Lisa replied, also with questionable sincerity. But whether or not the two meant their apologies didn't really matter at the moment. Right now, Lori had to address Lisa. Now, going off from what I got from your apologies, I guess you two know what you did was wrong, so I'm going to keep it short. Lisa, we told you that you could do experiments still, so long as it didn't involve anything dangerous and or if they involved our siblings. So to go behind our backs and use Lily, a baby, mind you, is way out of line. And I'm just, well, come on, Lisa, you know better than to use a baby as a scientific assistant for something with that kind of risk. Lori said, staring Lisa dead in the eyes the whole time of that monologue, although slightly lowering her tone near the end. Well, for the record, I did ask for help from the other siblings, you included, and they respectfully declined, to say the least, Lisa testified. And it's good you asked, but you do have science buddies, right? I mean, if you're trying to impress science folks like you say you are, then surely you can send like one guy over to help you out. I mean, do you have any idea how many people would want to help out a 4-year-old scientist test out some harebrained scheme? It's actually quite concerning the more you think about it. Or is it just somewhat grimly? Well, that's the thing, Lori. If I want support from the scientific community proper, then I need to actually show my scientific prowess firsthand, Lisa Glass clarified. Well, if that's true, then why not just wait for a science convention or something, dude? Luna asked Lisa, expecting a somewhat convoluted rebuttal like, oh, I got impatient? Lisa shrugged her shoulders while giving a sheepish tone. God, my throat's killing me. To which Luna was not impressed. All right, it's all done, Lisa. From now on, you are only to do wacky experiments like what we've seen here, only when we know about it and when there's some science showcase or something. And Luna, you have to help Lisa clean up this whole mess in her room while the others aren't here. What? They both barked simultaneously. And it's final. Don't like it? Too bad. My word's law around here, so suck it up and get to it. Lori spoke sharply before leaving to her room that was shared with Lenny and slamming the door behind her. This is bogus, dude, Luna muttered contemptuously. I know, right? Doesn't she know that science fairs come around only once or twice a year, and if you're lucky? But no, dude, Luna spat out while pointing at Lisa and grabbing a nearby mop, leaning against the wall to clean the black soot inside Lisa's carpet. Well, that's convenient. It was just there. Me? Mind elaborating a bit? Lisa questioned. Gladly. You see, I've got nothing to do with this, man. I got dragged into this, Luna said as she lifted up one foot to show all the blacks under her boot. Quite literally, might I add, and I wasn't the one who messed up the house again. I wasn't the one who went behind our own backs. No, I had just up and walked into your mess just because I wanted to see if you were okay. And I most certainly wasn't the one who threatened Lily's life. But no, Lori doesn't care. Just lumps us together for simplicity's sake. If anything, you should be holding this mop, not me. Narrated. Oh, please get over yourself. It's all in the past now, and you are holding the mop. And while yes, the circumstances behind it may be a tad unjust, but at least you aren't barred from doing what you love. I mean, let me put it this way. How would you like it if you could practice and perform only one specific time in a year, every year? Luna paused a bit to consider what that would actually be like. A musician would only play one piece or practice only during one time for an entire year. To say that would suck would be a criminal understatement. You wouldn't even be able to call yourself a musician at that point. Yeah, I guess that would suck, dude. If it would ever happen, that is, because there's only one thing that separates me and my music from you, and it's rather simple. My music helps the world, but your failed science experiments, well, just a bit Lily. What do you think would have happened if I weren't here? Oh, don't waste my time with what ifs and could have beens. At that point, you'd just be as sad and lonely as Lucy. Lisa snarled, looking out past the doorway and into the hallway. Lucy? What's she got to do with this? No question. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too. You know, I bet she's just brooding in a corner, sobbing over nothing as we speak. Just when Lisa said that, everyone in the house could hear the family second van dads pull in, along with some distant chatter coming from the family's direction simultaneously. Well, it sounds like them. I'm out. Luna Loud's leaving the building. Luna proclaimed as she held up a rocker sign in the air. And just where might you be headed? Lisa questioned. Me? Do you remember what Lori said? Well, yeah, see ya. Luna said while going down to the stairwell of the first floor, much to Lisa's distress. But what about my room? Lisa cried out. You're a scientist, right? That's your first world problem now. Luna shouted from downstairs while also being heard celebrating, much to Lisa's annoyance. God, confounded, flimsy contract terms, Lisa grumbled right before heading back to her room, sitting in the black sodden ground, resting her head on her knees in contemplation. Then she saw the video recorder that was part of the entire argument. Of 10 minutes ago. She then reflected on the explosion, looking back at the defined imprint on her face right next to Lisa's door frame. Lisa grimaced To find the outlaw outline of her face was, and how the wall itself shook when she made contact. Well, Lisa may have been fine. Lisa reflected further on what Una said about what if she wasn't there to catch Lily. My God, she thought. Lily would have definitely resembled that of a strawberry pancake if she had not caught Lily in time. And that realization horrified Lisa the more she thought about it. What am I doing? Lisa said while coddling the video recorder in her little grubby hands. Grubby. Staring back at the fish-eyed reflection that it gave back and seeing a stray tear leave up under her left eye lens. Upon seeing that stray tear, she used one hand to wipe it away and stood back up. No! We don't want to be useless like Lucy and dwell on the what-ifs and could-haves. Lisa reminded herself, stealing her nerves back to where they were before, scientific and rational. Well, at least what she considers rational. Yeah, God, that was a long chapter, and that was the first chapter of this fiction. First criticism. That chapter could have been cut in half, like Lucy's half and Lisa's half. Like they could have been two separate chapters. Like they didn't have to be that first chapter. Like, that was a long chapter, and there's a lot of grammar and spelling grammar things, not spelling so much, but grammar. Like there's periods where they shouldn't be. There's like misplaced words, like all that stuff around here. So I think like a look over or get Grammarly like to help you out with this, like if you need it, or just ask somebody around you to help you out with this grammar stuff if you don't want to get Grammarly, because Grammarly has helped me out a lot, like as a writer. As for the story itself, it's only the first chapter, and it's an introductory chapter. And for an introductory chapter, it's not bad. You're telling three. It looks like you're telling three simultaneous stories here. And I don't know if that's the case or that's what you're trying to do. I haven't, like I said, I haven't read the other chapters yet, because I'm doing this as a reaction. But I like how you're starting things off to get the story started. And I'm kind of curious. I like the Lisa's relationship with her great aunt or grandma or whoever that was. I like that. Lisa's conflict. I think if Lisa were doing something that was actually good, like that was actually helpful, or she was a bit more likable in this, then I would kind of be more invested. But honestly, Lisa just seems like a real bitch here. And the whole thing with Lori and Lenny, Lori and Lynn, my bad. I don't know what's going on with them. It's kind of a mystery. See, like, why she's mad at her. That would be nice, actually. So overall, it's not bad. It's interesting. It's definitely interesting. But I would shorten your chapters to make it easier for people to read. And I would also work up on your grammar, work on that. And I'm looking forward to chapter 2, actually. I want to see where this all goes. So thank you. Thank you, DJ Sprouts, for recommending this to me, and I will get to chapter 2 as soon as I can, but I need to rest my throat because God, that was long. But thanks for recommending it to me anyway. I appreciate the support. So I will see you all next time.